welcome. I printed out some note-taking paper if you want some. If you don't want some, I'm not offended. Just for aesthetics, if you'd like to partake. Welcome. I am not a 58-year-old with college-age students, and I just look really good. I am. I'm a 28-year-old 8th grade English teacher who was parented well by imperfect parents. So Chris had asked me if I wanted to speak on the moving out of the home, kind of preparing for that kind of life, because that was my life pretty recently. This can also be seen as a judgment-free zone, because I'm not a mom. I haven't walked through it, so I don't have this perfect story to tell you of, listen to how I nailed it as a parent, and if you don't live up to my standards, ooh, womp womp. So I don't have that. I just have some things that I walked through and experienced as a child being parented, and I was excited to bring that to this group today. So I wanted, the English teacher in me wanted to think of okay, what am I calling this time? What are the purposes of this time? So I thought of sacred spaces and the idea of reclaiming the mundane things in your life and declaring them sacred. Because very much in my home, that was the culture of my house. This idea of what was normal became sacred because of the routine or the things that would happen in my home. I would also want to say that this is kind of not the grand finale of parenting, but it's kind of parenting looks a lot different after this phase, or it looks very different than parenting a 3-year-old. Like you were talking last session, you can lead them by the hand when they're 3, 4. You can't do that when they're 17, 18, or you can, but it's not socially acceptable. So I don't want you to have a sense, I want to speak against any sense of accusation that you might feel, or any sense of failure, or any sense of it's too far gone, or I can't, this isn't helpful to me, this isn't, I blew it, I didn't do it then. I think that's not of Jesus. So I just want to speak against that before we kind of get into it, because I think it's awesome that you guys are here, and shows that you're loving your kids well. I mean, not that the people who aren't here aren't, but you get more points than they do.
We have faster access into heaven.
There you go. Pretty basic. I don't want to say that, but yeah. So on the little paper that I brought, I just put some clip art on the bottom of different spaces. These are not pictures of my parents' home. My father probably would not totally agree with some of the decor choices in said pictures.
I like that TV.
But,
The TV
yes,
choice.
yeah, the TV is authentic.
That's actually the TV that they own still.
That's authentic. But
It's
so I wanted
probably
to start
older
with,
than you, actually.
perhaps. I wanted to start with the kitchen table. The kitchen table is a sacred place in my parents' home, and it was ever since I was a little kid. We would have dinner together every night. That was our set routine. Once soccer practices started to come in and we started to have dance and soccer and all of that, we just had dinner later as a family, and that was something my parents made a point of. We would also have dessert every night. That would be dinner was special. It wasn't just okay, we only do special things when people come over. Our family is special. Our family is sacred. So we want to celebrate that time together. So we'd have, not a grand, but sometimes bowl of ice cream, whatever. So it wasn't just dessert was for the other people. It was just a treat for us. So our kitchen table was a sacred time where friends were allowed to come to dinner too. That wasn't a nothing thing. And we were allowed to go out once we were getting older. There was never but that's family dinner night. Nothing like that, but it was definitely a safe place where we could come and just be with our family for a couple hours every day. My parents, as I got into high school and started making my own choices and things like that, their point was to make me feel that they were always in my corner, that they were always on my side. And one of the big ways that they did that was when it came to dating, they weren't quick to absorb my boyfriends, and they didn't absorb my boyfriends into their family. It wasn't so you staying for dinner? There was none of that. It was very much, Diana, we're following your lead on this because we're in your corner. They also didn't absorb my friends. It wasn't, hey, I'm friends with your friend. There wasn't that sense of I'm a cool kid too, I'm fitting in with your group of people. It was very much, Diana, this is your life and we're in your corner and we are on your side. So then anytime I needed to break up with a boyfriend or have a friendship end, I had my parents in my corner, and there was no sense of, oh, what are they gonna think about? I don't like him anymore. Like, is this a bad choice? And like, oh, and that they never factored into my decision making as far as like ending something or knowing that this needs to stop. Because I knew that no matter what, they were in my corner and that they were on my side. They also spoke to me like I was old enough to be spoken to. There wasn't this talking over me or talking to me as though I was a child. Like once I was in high school, and I didn't go away to school. When I graduated high school, I went to Cumberland County. I had a scholarship, so I went to Cumberland County College, and then I commuted to Rowan University. So all through college, my 5 years of college, it was 5 because they didn't accept my credits. Just all through my 5 years of college, I lived at home. I was an adult living at home, and so it was kind of an odd dynamic because my parents are very much still seeing my life and a part of my life, but I'm an adult, so it was an interesting dynamic. But there would just come a point where my parents would talk to me, and we'd have real talk, and it wouldn't be this coming to blows, angry kind of thing, but just a sense of, I'm not gonna pretend like you don't know what's going on, or I'm not gonna pretend like you don't see me mess up. We're gonna talk, and we're gonna do life together. And I really appreciated that and felt very respected in that kind of environment, because then I felt safe to bring my things as well, and to kind of be upfront and say, this is something I'm walking through, or this is something that's going on. Just as like a practical thing, as far as curfews, I never had one growing up. There was never an official, I have to be home by this time. But what my parents did was, and this was once I was driving on my own. So it was a general idea of if you're not going to be home, like by 10 o'clock, like when I was in high school, if you're not going to be home by 10 o'clock, so we had that Cinderella license, so you couldn't be out too late anyway. But I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. Oh, okay. Oh, so I didn't date myself. All right. So the idea, like, if you're going to be out past 10, you owe us a phone call. You need to call us. And then once I got into college, it was more, if you're out past midnight, we would just appreciate a courtesy call. Like, let us know, hey, I'm not going to be coming home. I'm not coming home at all, or I'm not going to be coming home till later. They said, because we live here. Like, we're still going to be, like, waiting up for you. So it was very much I felt very trusted in that. So when it came time, and I was looking at the clock, and it was like 9:30, and I'm like, we just started this movie or whatever. Just pull out my phone and just quick, hey, I'm just not gonna make it home. Oh, okay, thanks for letting us know. And it was something that I felt trusted and felt mature, like I felt like they were trusting me with the responsibility of myself. So to be like, hey, I'm not gonna make it home, like I never not called, because I felt safe, and it was never oh, well, can't you make it back? No. It's like, okay, thank you for letting us know. So that's just a practical thing that I thought of that was really helpful to me growing up. Like, I just felt like my parents were treating me like the adult I was becoming. And so that left doors very open. So it felt very comfortable to me to express where I was or what was going on, instead of concealing or hiding or, oh, I don't want them to know about this. And when I think of my kitchen table growing up, I think of the word trust. Eating a meal together every night, and it wasn't always an intense, like, where's your heart, let's talk about that. That was not the culture. Sometimes it did get intense, and sometimes it was like, whoo, real talk just happened. But it was an every night occurrence, so it was very peaceful, and the rhythm of our life was that we talk together and we eat together, and that's just the rhythm of our life. So even now, as I'm an adult, like, I'll still call my parents, hey, can I come over for dinner tonight? Like, can we do that? Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, come on over. So the kitchen table I associate with the word trust. That's just a very safe place. The next picture is of a countertop. There's this part in my parents' kitchen where they don't have an island, but they have one of those like peninsulas that come out. So it's the counter going this way and the peninsula coming out. And that corner where the peninsula comes out, that was my seat for a lot of really ugly stuff. That was where I would sit when I'd be bringing stuff that I was ashamed of, bringing things that I had done wrong. That was the place where I got yelled at the most. That's where, like, our relationship, like, we didn't come to blows, but really push came to shove, and that was where real talk happened. That was where I often heard my dad say, I am not your friend, I am your father. And that was a big culture that my parents carried, especially once I was getting older, this sense of, and my dad would say it a lot, I don't need 17-year-old friends. So I would love it if we could be friendly and you could view me as a friend, but I'm your father first, and I will always be your father. And that's my first job. And so there would be times where, oh, absolutely, I would hate that, because being my father meant, you know, the hammer was dropping, or, you know, I was being restricted, or I was being called out on some ugly things in my life. But that also felt so safe, because I too have friends. I don't need 57-year-old friends. So there was such freedom in that, to know that, like, as much as I hate it, at the same time, my dad is on my side and is going to protect me. And my mom would be the same way. She would often say, I am not in your way, so stop acting like I'm in your way, because I'm your mother and I'm not in your way. So that was one of those things that my dad would say, that and my mom would say, that would just, it would hurt, but it would bring peace at the same time, almost like a slap and then putting aloe on it immediately, like this, ooh, okay, like this, that kind of both at once kind of thing. Another big phrase that got said a lot in my family is, you're worth fighting for. And that was something my parents brought a lot. Oh, I get emotional over it. But the idea that I was worth fighting for, that was something that, as I was becoming more of a teenager, making my own choices, this sense of, if people aren't treating you like you're worth fighting for, or they're not fighting for you, then they're not people that you need in your life. And that especially was coming into play with dating, and with the men I was interacting with, or boys at that point, interacting with, so that I'm worth fighting for. So that if I'm settling for anything less than that, then that's not what I need in my life. Two specific examples too. I had really awful acne in high school and in college. I ended up having to go on Accutane, which is like it's a poison drug. Like, you have to get blood work every 6 weeks while you're on it. So just to give you an idea, it was pretty bad. And a lot of the things I would do, I was so self-conscious about it, and I would just claw at my face every night, because I just felt disgusting and dirty and worthless, and just it became such a part of my identity. So I'd be scratching and scratching till my face was all bloody, and I put medicine. It was a very toxic time for me. I think that was like senior year of high school, into like freshman, sophomore year of college. So there would be a time where my mom and my dad would just hold my hands, and they would say, you need to cut your nails, because all you're doing is clawing at your face, and you're worth fighting for. You're worth having healthy skin. We're going to take you to the doctor. We're going to help you. We're going to do as much as we can, but at the same time, we're going to call you out. Cut your nails. So that sounds like an odd thing, but it was my parents being my parents first, not being my friend. So not being like, oh, you're beautiful. You don't have to do that. It was no, Diana, like, you're worth fighting for, and you need to be fought for right now. Cut your nails. So I would be angry, and I'd go upstairs and be like, this is the one pretty thing I have. And I'm like cutting my nails off, being like really upset about it. But then seeing that this was my parents fighting for me and preventing me from causing harm to myself and causing things to go awry. Another situation, I struggle with anxiety and depression. That's just a mental health issue that I battle, that didn't really come out till about 25 years old, but it was manifesting itself before then. But so just again, a sense of my parents, that I'm worth fighting for. And another phrase they would say a lot is, my job is to protect you, sometimes from yourself. So like, I'm not going to allow you to think certain ways, or at least I'm going to speak truth into your life while you're thinking things about yourself. So like, while I'd be struggling or working through things or having panic attacks, or my parents would be there as just support, and they would be protecting me from myself. So it wasn't necessarily they'd be coming in like a wrecking ball and let me fix you. That was rarely the culture, but it was, let me give you some tools to fight for yourself. And that's going to be us fighting with you. We're going to get in the trenches with you. So we're going to tell you to cut your nails. We're going to tell you to, let's take you to the doctor and see if you need medication for your depression and anxiety. Like, we want to support you as much as we can. You tell us, like, here's what we can do. Tell us if you want that. And that was so empowering as a teenager, young adult, the whole thing, just having my parents asking me questions. And okay, like, these are things we have to offer you. Do you want that? And if so, like, let's keep going. So that's my countertop. That's another sacred space in my home. Like, whenever I see that spot, like, it's like but it's a good space. It's a really good space. Then I have the couch and the TV on there. These are a little bit more lighter places in my upbringing. Just this, my family did a lot of stuff together. On Friday nights, that was usually movie night at our house, where we watched TV together a lot. I wasn't allowed to have a TV in my room, which, because of my, like, it's just, I recommend not having TVs in kids' rooms, because it was such a life-giving thing to be with my family. And so many of my friends, they just go home and go to their bedroom and then come out for dinner and then go back in their bedroom. And it's just such a foreign, and I see how that affects their relationship with their parents, because then when it's time to talk to their parents, it seems so forced and seems so like interview, like, how was your day? And I just feel like it's way easier to put on a front. So for me, like, as a teenager, young adult, it was so beneficial to have, to not have a TV and nowhere to go. Like, I rarely spent time in my bedroom. I was either in the basement, which was a public space, or in the living room, which was a public space. So sharing those things with my family, laughing, we watched Seinfeld a lot. That was like our thing. So or like Modern Family, or, you know, whatever. But because in those moments too, like, I'd be playing rummy with my dad watching Seinfeld, and, you know, like, something will crop up in your mind, or, oh, I should probably talk about this. But being related to in fun often will just lead to relating to your kids in life. Because if I'm having fun with you and if I'm laughing with you, that means I'm trusting you. And if I'm trusting you, then I can say, hey, you know what, I messed up today at school and this happened. And then it can be a 10-minute conversation, and then we'll go back to my dad kicking my butt and getting Rummy 500, and it's done. So it just felt very safe. One of the caramel corn, my dad makes a really awesome caramel corn. So that our times together were special. So, like, having dessert every night with dinner, watching movies together, we'd make popcorn, make caramel corn. Like, that was always a fun thing. So when I would invite friends over, I'd be like, oh, you gotta try my dad's caramel corn. I know it sounds stupid because we're 18, but come over, like, it's fine. Like, it became just a general, like, all right, this is cool. Like, it's a little weird, I acknowledge it, but this is cool. Like, this is what we do here. When I think of my upbringing, or my parents in my teens, adult years, I think of the passage Genesis 16:13. That's with Hagar. And it says, she gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. And I think one of the biggest blessings or things that I feel like I had in my home was this sense that I was seen. And that was such a big deal, that my parents saw me. And it wasn't saw me and then had a list of things to fix me. It was they saw me and they loved me and they trusted me and they knew me. So then anything that needed fixing, because there were things that needed, still things that need fixing, there was safety to bring it, and it wasn't this abrasive, like, oh, I just felt like there was trust there that I could, because my parents saw me. One of the ways my mom saw me and kind of gently brought just some life into that is my room. So I'm 19, I'm in college, I'm doing my college thing, and my room would get a mess. Like, I wouldn't make my bed in the morning, clothes all over the floor, like, you know, a mess. And it would be that way for like weeks. And so my mom, like, would pull me aside and say, hey, like, your room's a mess. Like, and so, but instead of it being a conversation like, I'm an adult, like one of those weird kind of like abrasive, why are you yelling at me about my room, Mom? You're the worst. It was, my mom would say, your room is a mess, what's going on? And like, at first that would pause me and I would kind of go, I'm busy. And she would say, oh, okay, what's going on? Like, why isn't your room clean? Like, why don't you make your bed? Why don't you put your clothes away? Like, what, there's something else going on. So in those moments, I felt very seen. So a lot of times, because a lot of times the mess in my room matched my life. If my life was really out of control, or I had 20, 30 different things going at once, it might not even have been bad, but if I was just beyond busy and just 20 different things going on at once, my room would reflect that. But a lot of times it was a sign of, there's some stuff going on. There's some things going on. Why don't you think, and my mom was like, why don't you think you deserve a clean room? You deserve to get into a nice bed at night. You deserve to have folded clothes. So what's happening that's causing this breakdown where you're not kind of providing or allowing those things into your life? So it was like correction, it was like definite mom correction, but it felt very just safe and didn't feel like an accusation. Like, you're dirty because your room is dirty. Not at all. It was, what's going on? Why? Why is your room dirty? And a big phrase my dad has been saying of late, now that I'm 28 now, but he's been saying, like, this has been a part of them parenting me into adulthood and everything, that he's trusting God for me. So not that my faith is my dad's faith, not that, but he's trusting God with my story. And so his amount of control and influence is less and less and less. And so that's kind of how my parents raised me through high school and college. Like, our authority in your life is going to be less and less and less. And as my parents like released me like that, like they started holding me instead of like with hands like this, like you did last class, hands like this, kind of just more this sense, like, we're still holding you, but there's an openness there. And the more they were able to do that, the safer I felt and the more equipped I felt to be an adult and to make choices and to do hard things. So one of the ways they did that too was almost this sense of letting me pick my family. So yes, I have my mom and my dad and my sister. That's my that's my nuclear family. But then through like my later years in high school and into college, I started picking my own family. So it's fun. I have my mom here. Like this, like Carissa's my mom. I call her mom. And she's someone I picked as my family. And so anything I'm walking through, and I'll talk with my parents about it, and they'll say, okay, does Carissa know about it? I'll be like, yeah, I'm getting dinner with her tonight. Like, it's happening. So I got to pick my family. And then I have a couple other women in my life and a few men in my life that they're my family. Like, these are my people who also helped me and also helped push me in the right direction and call me out on my crap. Because when you're in high school, college, newly out, you can become really good at being like a spin master and, you know, creating this life that you want to look like you're living that's not necessarily accurate or necessarily healthy. So they let me pick my family. And then this past winter, I was in a really like near fatal car accident. And I had a lot of rehab and a lot of stuff to do. But instead of my parents like absorbing me completely and living at home and all this kind of stuff, my dad came to my house while I was in the rehab hospital and moved my bedroom, because I live on my own now. So he moved my bedroom upstairs so I wouldn't have to go up and down steps. And they filled my fridge with food and they provided a lot of things and were always available to me. But they allowed me to come home and be an adult and allowed me to be on my own. So it wasn't this, something bad has happened in your life, now we're gonna swoop in and be your parents and take care of everything and fix it and fix it and fix it and fix it. No, they were able to. So I mean, props to them, because I feel like this part of parenting, I feel like it's hard. So props to you guys. I feel like this is like a really, I'm sure it's scary to like parent a 3-year-old, but this seems scarier to parent older than 3, parent teens and beyond. But there's such life in it to be a recipient of parents who did their best to parent well, imperfect parents parenting well, that there's so much of my heart now that I'm a 28-year-old that I still run to my parents when things happen. Even recently, I'm in a season of I've made some poor choices. So the other night I called my parents and I told them, like, hey, this happened and I'm sorry it happened, but I need to be accountable and I need to tell you what's going on in my life. And, you know, it wasn't the most peaceful conversation, but it ended with like my mom and my dad praying over me and saying, like, you know what, okay, thank you for telling us, it's done now. Like, this was a mistake, let's keep moving. So my encouragement or my thoughts with this juncture of life is to, just from what I've observed with my parents and being a recipient of it, just very much of asking asking your children for answers, like, hey, what's going on? Instead of being like, this is what you're doing, this is how you're thinking, I did this, I failed you in some way, how did I ruin you, how did I mess up? I feel like that seems like to be the natural inclination, like to kind of take on the blame or the accusation, or this was my fault. You think this way about God or about yourself because of something I did. Maybe, but maybe not. And the best person to tell you the answer to that would be your child, would be your teen, would be your adult. So I have a sense now in my family that I'm seen, that I'm safe. So how can I not be honest with them? How can I not bring who I am to the table? Because they already see me and they already say that I'm safe. So how can I not express who I am and what I'm going through? I didn't think of how to summarize, but just this sense of, I was thinking too, if anything that I've said, I feel like, oh, I want to try dinners every night at my house now, or something like that, or we don't do that, but I'd like to try it. As far as talking to your kids, they're old enough to be spoken to, let them, if you feel like you want to try something that's going to be awkward, tell them you think it's awkward. They're smart enough to know when something's awkward. So if you want to start, really want to start doing dinners every night, because I recommend it. It's pretty awesome. I still love it. But if you want to, and you're like, this is going to be awkward because this isn't our normal thing, tell them that. Okay, I get it. You're 15. This is going to be awkward, and we're probably not going to talk probably the first few nights because we don't really know each other like this. Or my family will joke, we're not friends like that. That's not, I don't know you like that. Tell them, give them the benefit of the doubt, and they'll surprise you. I think a lot of times, if you're real with your kids, they'll be real back more often than not. But yeah, so if you're doing something that's awkward, tell them, hey, listen, I know this is awkward, but this is something that I want to try, or this is something that I'd like for us to commit to, or something that I'd like for us to give it a go. Because there were times where my parents would bring stuff to me and just kind of be like, yeah, this is, we don't like this, but this is going on. And I just felt more a part of the family than that I was being parented. It felt like I was more a member of it, as opposed to, we're in charge and you have to listen and just follow along with whatever we do. I felt more valued and appreciated, a part of what was going on. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has questions. I don't know, questions make sense? I don't know, yeah.
My first question is, I'm hands-on. So I have the 21-year-old and I have a 17-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those that don't know, my 17-year-old has a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm parenting a 17-year-old who has a baby who's a mom, and all that is that's messy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning as I go because no one's speaking really, no one's there for me to be like, this is what you can and can't do. I hear different scenarios, but I'm at a loss in that regard. I mean, my biggest thing is I've used words I'm an advocate in the sense what's done is done. I love you and here you are.
Right.
She knows that.
Right.
I got her back 100%. There's no condemnation there. I was 19 when I had my own daughter. But one of the things in my family is that is the responsibility level. So if you have a 17-year-old, she's a full-time college, she works, she's a mom, I have felt that she's not prepared to leave home, but she's living, you know what I mean? She has all these responsibilities, but yet there's things I want to, our biggest thing in our house is chores. So I've had one family tell me, I can't force them at a certain age to do chores. And there's not this sense of you're not gonna have TV time. Well, we can't do that because they don't even have time to watch TV. So I don't even know how to correct certain things that they do because they have a life. She's going to work. I can't say go in your room, but she has to attend to her baby.
Right.
Or the 21-year-old. So the only thing that I have come up with, and this is what I wanted to ask you, is if they both work. This is I try to think scenarios in my brain because again, I'm not I haven't read a book, I haven't figured out like what works. Is okay, so chores are not being done, but we all live in this household. Is it okay for me to be like, you're paying rent? It would be considered rent, and there's a certain amount of money that goes towards it. Because I'm like, well, at the end of the day, then it all falls on me. So did your parents ever say, like, if when you were working, did they ever? Because you want to teach, and the first thing I say is that you tithe, you save, and there has to be a sense of responsibility. So what does that look like? Did your parents ever do that, or is my situation something like you can't speak because you don't understand like what I'm saying? Or if anybody else can speak to me.
Yeah, like I think no, I never paid rent. My parents I never contributed financially to the house. And I guess but when it came to chore, like I had things that I was needing to do or clean or whatever, and if it wasn't happening, it was more of a question like, why aren't you doing this? So not you need to do this. It was no more, why aren't you? And because I was 18 credits, 20, 30-hour work week, like ministry at church, like I was busy too, like, so busy could be my answer, but I also hung out with my friends. So busy is a lame answer. That's not a good answer because you're all busy too. You're all real adults. You're more real adults than we are. So,
I'm real.
Yeah, you're a real adult. But so
She's a real girl.
just coming from a child's perspective in that, I would just encourage you to ask questions like, why? Okay, so why aren't, like, if your job's to clean the bathroom or vacuum, or why isn't that happening? Like, so what's going on? Like, why is this not a value to you? Will you just never vacuum your home when you're in your own home? Like, so am I to assume that nothing will ever be cleaned ever in your life? Like, just like, what's going on? Like, because you know that this is the expectation of our home, and this is what makes our home feel like a home. And like, cleanliness is something you're worth. You're worth having clean carpet or whatever the chore. You're worth having that. So what's happening? Where's the breakdown? Like, that's what my family would say a lot too. Where's the breakdown? Like, what's breaking down here that this isn't matching with this? Because I feel as though having her pay rent would almost just be like a cop out. Like, I'll just throw money at it and then I won't have to be responsible.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
When I'm on my own, I'm just like,
No, they won't, because I'm on my own and I don't got money for that.
That's their answer, but that's not
That's a
really
great
right.
thought. I don't think I'd be able to afford that till I have kids to do it.
I like what you're saying. I think Christopher doesn't pay any rent. He's 22. He's staying at home and that. But we are all part of a home. And as part of a home, we have certain responsibilities. And so we on occasion, I'd like to say it was at least once a month, because he just recently had two of his other friends that were also living at our home. And so we try to sit down and have conversations and say, look, we're all part of this home. We all work. We all have other things that we do, but everybody needs to chip in and do something around here. So you can either see it on your own, or I will ask you, or Mom will ask you, or Mrs. G will ask you, because you're living in our home. We're not charging you any rent, but and this is the tone that would be of the conversation. You have a responsibility. If you see a trash can that's overflowing, empty it.
Right. Exactly.
Wednesday's trash and recyclable day. Take the trash.
Yeah.
Now, if you aren't going to see it, I want to tell you that on occasion, I will take the recycles and trash out. But on occasion, I'm going to ask you guys to do it, and and my expectation is going to be that you're going to do it, and you're not going to say, I'm busy. Or I got someplace to go.
Sometimes I get annoyed with my parents because they would turn it into how I would view it. You're turning it into a bigger thing than it is. Like, you're making it all about respect and all this kind of stuff. It's not about that. Well, when you step back and kind of break it down, it is kind of about respect. Because if the home where you're living values having a clean home and that's where you're living, then you need to upkeep the standards of where you're living. So, and that's true when you're out on your own too, you know, like I had to cut a bush back in front of my house because it was overgrowing the sidewalk. Well, I lived in the neighborhood, that's the town I live in, I had to follow the rules, you know, so it is a respect thing. It is a sense of ownership and being a part of something. So I'd get annoyed and be like, oh, it is just because I'm busy. What if it actually is because I'm busy? But then it would challenge me to think and kind of like take a step back and, okay, is it really? Okay, let me think this through and kind of just help me identify. So that even carries into my home now. I'll have seasons where my room is a wreck. And so like a few months ago, I came home and I was like just depressed and not feeling like doing anything, just feeling just all kinds of lies and just awful. And I went downstairs and my room was a wreck and I just started crying and I was like, you deserve a clean room. So like, because my mom would say that growing up. So my 27-year-old self then, I cleaned my room at 10 o'clock at night, bawling my eyes out because that's what I did. I deserve to have a clean room. So, you know, like, so those things stick with you. Because it's more than just about cleaning the room. It is. It is. You can cop out and say that it's not, but it is. It always is. So that would be my thought with that. Just being on the receiving end. Any other thoughts?
I would say, just to expand on what you guys were talking about, getting, because you guys have like a team dynamic now at the house, and like Frank's saying, everyone's living here, everyone's got to pitch in. One of the things that could help is getting buy-in from them.
What's that?
Like getting buy-in from them, like getting them to pitch in a way that's self-discoverable. Maybe when you sit down with your daughters and say, hey, what is your expectation of X? Well, if it's a trash, what's that look like? Who should be taking it out? They're going to be fair about it, or should be fair about it, in terms of like what it looks like physically on a daily basis. Like, what does that look like? Is mom supposed to take out the trash all the time? Well, no, not really. But if you provide kind of like upfront expectations on like what exactly it is that you guys have issues with, and you can even commit to signing them, having them written, so that, you know, we both agree that on Mondays I'm gonna handle the trash, on Tuesdays you're gonna handle the trash, and then both of you sign it, so it's now a written document that you have buy-in from. And then when somebody goes back on that upfront contract, then you can always come to conclusion again and discuss that again and say, you know, back on such and such date, we talked about, agreed upon, so the contract was kind of broken. So what happens there? How do we fix that? And it's another way to re-engage.
Yeah. I think too, like my parents would incorporate me into the family, and like we would talk, and not peer level but close, but there was still the dynamic that they were my parents. There was still they still are my parents. That's still the element. So my dad was saying, I will never be your friend. I will be your father first. And that's my job, and that's like my gift, that I get to be your father first. So then when, you know, things were dropping off, I mean, like you said, you can't punish. You can't be like, okay, my adult child, no TV for you, no cookies before dinner. Like, I can't. That's not. Ooh, I'm so scared. Like, it's totally not. Like, it doesn't work. But for me, the sense of like I've not let my family down, but this sense of my parents are calling me to something higher, and I'm living down here, and they want me to be something higher. They're seeing who I am. That whole Genesis 16:13, just being seen. So my parents are seeing something that I'm not seeing in myself right now, and they're calling me to something that's much greater than what I'm living. So yeah, it is mopping the floor, but that is a greater thing, like, you know, that kind of a sense. So that this really is that, like, there are bigger things happening with mundane things. So like that idea of reclaiming mundane things and declaring them sacred. So like the most mundane, that corner of my countertop is like holy ground to me. So taking those things and thinking about that there's something sacred going on here. There's something of God going on here. It's more than just dusting, or it's more than just curfews, or it's more than just respecting the rules of the house, or that kind of a thing. So, I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
I have a curfew story.
Yeah.
As some of you may or may not know, years ago we took in my wife is Cindy, and we took in one of Cindy's students from the alternative school program.
Oh, wow.
And she basically was homeless, was on her own since she was about 13, and had nobody watching over her. So she was 18 when she moved in, when we took her in. And the first thing we did after we had a talk about how things are going to play out here when she moved in our house. And the first thing I said, well, if you want me to be like your dad, then I'm going to give you a curfew. And she actually lit up. She's like, I have a curfew? I never had one before.
Yeah.
And we told her it was midnight, and we explained the rationales, because at the time we had young kids. So I'm going back 10 years. So our kids were 8, 6, and 4. I said, we get up at 5 in the morning to go to work, so we can't have somebody running around 2 o'clock in the morning bringing friends in and out of the house. And she understood that. It wasn't a punitive thing. It was just out of respect.
Right.
We need to have quiet, because we're putting kids to bed. We get up early. And she was very respectful of the curfew. We made it midnight, and if there was a time where she was going to be out, she called.
Right.
And she was very apologetic. She was like, I'm so sorry, because I'm really trying to get home, but I don't have a ride. But I just remember being kind of caught off guard when I first brought it up, that you have a curfew. And she was like, I do? I never had one before.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting that. I thought I'd get a little pushback.
That makes me think of whatever saying it is, that like sheep feel safest in a pen.
Yeah.
Like, and it's absolutely true. And I hate comparing. I mean, no, I love comparing myself to a sheep because I'm pretty dumb all the time. But like the idea that we feel safest when we know our boundaries as children. Like we feel safest when we know what our expectations are. And if I know how far I can go, that feels safe to me. So if I know, like, push it back. So to have a child in your home who never had that, then to have like a fence. So I'm safe in here. Out here isn't safe, but so you've helped me identify where life is, and life is before midnight, and then after midnight, no, only death happens. But yeah, so like the idea that boundaries create safety and create trust and create such a sense of, oh, okay, this is good. So like when I was like, I didn't date a lot in high school. My sister dated a little more, but nothing over the top. In college, though, my parents never absorbed my boyfriends. They weren't rude to them. My dad wasn't like shining the shotgun, anything like that. But there wasn't this sense of, we want you to feel comfortable telling us things about him, so we're going to absorb him into our family so that everything we do has him in it. No, it was very much, you're safe with us. We're on your side in your corner. You can bring him along, bring him by as much as you want to. Like, this is a safe place. This is your home to bring him into. But he's not our son. He's not a part of us. So, like, he's new. He's the new kid on the block. So they would be a little standoffish, like a little bit, like not all about, so tell me all of this. Like, I never saw my parents talking for hours with my boyfriend on the couch. Like, that never happened. It was very much like our family would be together, then he and I would do something and then come back, And I feel so grateful for that now because I am single, so those boyfriends didn't work out. But I felt freedom and safety in stepping away from those things and really evaluating, okay, God, what are you saying to me in this relationship? So it wasn't about, well, my mom really likes him, my dad really likes him, they're telling me how he's so good for me and he's so what I need. Ooh, no, God, what are you saying about me? What are you saying are my whatever? So that was always something so helpful as far as like with boundaries. So they set boundaries even with the people I would bring into the home. Like, this isn't going to be our kid. Like, we'll be nice to them. We're not going to be rude, and we'll feed them, and they'll also get dessert because we all get dessert. But yeah, this sense of like we're trusting you to make your choices, and like we're honored and flattered that you're going to include this person in our family and bring them around. But this is you. This is your life right now. Like, so we're gonna support, but we're not going to parent the crap out of you and like make you do whatever we say you should be doing. So some boyfriends did not last very long at all. So because I was able to have the clarity because I didn't have my parents in my head saying anything. And yes, so there was one boyfriend who was bad. I figured you might have kids who date bad people. There was a boyfriend that was bad. And my parents and my sister had dated someone who was bad. So my parents in those situations did not come out and say he's bad, like don't date him, he's bad. But there was a general discomfort with this guy in our family and a sense of so we would ask questions like, what do you think, like I would say, so what do you think of him? What do you think of this guy? And my parents say, well, what do you think of him? Like, what do you think of you, the two of you together? Like, tell us what you think. Because what I think really doesn't matter right now. What do you think? And so the sense of if you're asking me this question, seems like you might have that question too. Like I'm looking like, Mom, Dad, help me here. Like, what do you think? Well, it's your boyfriend. It's not our boyfriend. So what do you think? And so a lot of times even that would bring a sense of calling me out on the carpet. Like, okay, like, whoa, they wouldn't answer the question. So why wouldn't they answer the question? Okay, so what do I think of him? Like, and really start evaluating. Like, well, he doesn't talk nicely to me, and he doesn't treat me like I'm worth fighting for, and he, so that kind of a thing. So it would help me develop the distance. Now, did I dump him right away? No, we still dated for a couple months. But back to with my dad saying, I'm trusting God for you. Like, God's a better writer of my story than my parents are. And that's been something that I've just been walking through and learning. Like, he is ultimately in control, and he's really good at being in control because he made everything, and he's in charge of everything, and he's sovereign, and he's good. He has good things for his kids. So as much as you have good things for your kids, how much more does God have good things? Like that story in the Bible, or the analogy, or asking for bread, like you won't be given a stone. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, God wouldn't do that. Like, God has good gifts.
Do you think if you had decided to become engaged to one of these boyfriends, their relationship relative to standing outside of it would have immediately changed?
I talked with my mom. My mom talked with me about that because the one boy, she said if we had lots of red flags and lots of this isn't the one, like this is not where we want your life to go. And my mom said if it got to the point of being engaged, we were going to have some real talk with you. Like, that was going to come out. But until then, we were still trusting you to feel it out and see how you want to be treated, how you want your life to look. And my life was starting to shape up. And so there was a sense of, had this gotten to a more committal thing, we as your parents would speak up and say, okay, these are some things we're seeing. What are you seeing in that? Do you agree with what we're seeing? Are we seeing something that's not accurate? Like, talk to me through it. So, and I was so grateful for that, because that relationship actually ended in panic attacks and a lot of it exploded. The relationship exploded. But I felt the whole time that my parents were for me. There was never a sense that I had to, like, I'm so sorry I dated him. Like, nothing like that. I felt like my parents the whole time were in my corner. And there was no sense of, well, you were so stupid for dating him. Like, you should never have done that. We told you so. There was none of that. There was no culture of that. So I felt so safe to have him not in my life anymore, and then to just be home and to be safe and to be like, oh, okay, that's over. Like, we're moving on from that. But yeah, so there was an element, though, of if it had gotten to the point of, I'm really committing my life to this guy, there'd have been a sense of, whoa.
And if they had liked the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you had gotten to that point, they would also not be as, you had the perception they're not going to be as standoffish as they were now. They're going to start treating him as part of the family.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the sense of, like, to be a part of our family was like an earned position. Like, you're not just going to be in because your daughter brought you here. Just because you walked in our door doesn't mean you're in our family. Like, you got to work for it.
You do have a brother-in-law.
I do, yes. My sister did successfully get married.
And
So there
he
is.
part of that.
He is absolutely a part.
Yeah.
He cries now at Grace. He's a full Hoffman. He was not a crier prior to, but we've absorbed him. But yes, very much a part of the family. So it's not a chilly environment at all whatsoever. But yeah, so definite. But the idea that my parents always say, you're worth fighting for. So anybody, oh, my alarm. So it's
Your
almost
parents?
time to be done. No, it's just almost time to be
It's not
done.
your parents, okay.
Yes.
Your parents will check it up on you.
Teaching a class right now. I'm an adult. No, I was just so I'd be aware of time. But yeah, so just this idea, like that was so integral in my life that my parents would say that I'm worth fighting for, and that their job as my parents was to protect me, to trust God for me, and sometimes protecting me meant protecting me from myself. It meant protecting me from other, but it wasn't this overarching, we don't trust you to make good choices. It was, our job is to protect you, but we're also trusting God for you. So this kind of dual dynamic of holding me like this as opposed to like this. So like there was a lot of life here. A lot of life. And so I brought some books too, just that were helpful to me that I read. I still read them, they're good. This was like freshman year of college, so I was like 18, 19, 20, and so on. Blue Like Jazz, Donald Miller. These aren't parenting books, these are just books that were helpful to me as a teen, still kind of figuring out, okay, what kind of Christian do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like? It's soaked because I would read it by the pool a lot. Well, it's not still soaked, it's just water damage. But, so Blue Like Jazz, Donald Miller, like, if you want to recommend books to your kids, I don't know what kind of, that seems kind of weird, like, hello, I went to a parent summit, and here's a book, read it. I don't know if I recommend that, but if you'd want to check it out, or like, you know, whatever. Blue Like Jazz is really good. Sex God, awkward to read in public because of the title. Not totally 100% like sold on Rob Bell's theology on everything, but this book is all about sexuality and spirituality and how the two are integral to your identity. Really good book. I really liked that. I read these a part of book studies at our church, our young adult book study group. Captivating for the ladies. Wild at Heart is the men's version of it. Really good, and this would be, I feel like this would be a cool one, like if my mom wanted to read a book with me, this would be kind of a neat one for the two of us to kind of read separately. I don't know, like that would be one of those things where I said earlier, if you want to try something, like, hey, this might be super awkward, but let's try it. Like, talk to your kids like they're old enough to be spoken to, and be like, hey, I want to read a book with you. I know it's awkward, but let's go for it. Like own it. Own that it'll be super awkward, and they'll own it back, and it'll be fine. So Captivating and Wild at Heart, John and Stacey Eldridge. John writes the Wild at Heart one, because Stacey's a woman. All right, and then Love Does by Bob Goff. This one's like a fun read, just about extraordinary love and just being a loving person and saying yes in a lot of situations and just going for it. These are all Christian books as well. There's Jesus throughout all of them. But those were just books I wanted to bring because I read them in this leaving the home, moving on up. These are the books that I read in that juncture of my life. And still read them now, have them on my bookshelf at home. And just really helped kind of shape some of my thoughts on God, thoughts on my identity, because a lot of them speak to identity, and identity in Christ, not identity in the world, or, you know, you're 21, have fun, go out, just being in your 20s is about having fun. Like, whoa, that's what's gotten me in trouble recently. So, like, that's a really huge pitfall. But these are some really good things that I read. So I just wanted to bring those by, just in case you're looking for just some good books. And they could be for you, too. They're great. Even if you're not in your 20s, they're great
I've read
books to
them.
read. Yes,
So.
yes, Mom and I read
I'm 40.
Captivating together. Did we read Blue Like Jazz? Did we read all three of these together? Did you read
No,
Sex
just
God?
the two in the middle. Blue Like Jazz, Connie started me on that one. And
Yeah.
she started to read it when we were away.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and if you have kids that are kind of not super into Jesus, don't know how much they love Jesus yet, Donald Miller is just a generally good author I would recommend. Like he's pretty awesome.
He wrote a book called Searching for God Knows What.
Yes, that's a fantastic one too.
I think it's, even for me, it's better than Blue Like Jazz.
Absolutely.
It's a book of essays. And it's
I've
really,
read that. I've read that in my
good.
later 20s.
Really
It's another fantastic, and Scary Close is another one of his that was really good. But yeah, so I feel like he's a good one if your kids are not like so sure, don't know how much they love Jesus yet. He'd be a good author to be like, hey, if you just want a good like life book with like kind of ninja Jesus in it, like it's definite Jesus, but it's a little bit ninja, so it's good. It's good. Yeah, so I don't. If anyone else has any more thoughts or comments or things that we can address or talk about, we have a little bit more time. My alarm went off, but we have like maybe 7 more minutes. If not, I'll just close this out in prayer.
I a question. I don't know if you turn the clock back like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Did you go through a phase where you were like angry and you hated the house and said, when I'm 18, I'm moving out?
I don't think I had like the stereotypical angsty,
Okay.
I hate this phase. I think I had more of a phase of, where do I fit in this? I'm a mess. This is all really awesome. Ugh, this doesn't match me.
I think
I
that's
had
the
more
root
of
of
that.
what's causing, like, I hear that.
Mhm.
You know, I have three,
Right,
three
yeah.
daughters. I
Mhm.
hear it.
Babysitter
My oldest
back.
daughter
Yeah.
now is out of that stage.
Mhm.
You know, she's loving and kind. She's
Yeah.
back to human
Yeah.
again. For lack of a better word.
We vacate. It happens.
But my two younger daughters are
Yeah.
now, you know, I'm 18 and I have a 17-year-old daughter.
Right.
And I know it's rooted in, some of it's just rooted in the fact that they disagree with Cindy on how Cindy keeps the house. Like there's Cindy's way of keeping the house and there's their way of keeping the house. And a lot of it's rooted in that.
Right.
Yeah, it really just comes out like do the dishes. Yeah. It's
Right,
really-
yeah. Well, it's
You-
like logistics meeting like
Yeah.
actual life. Yeah,
Sweep
absolutely.
the floor. you
Yeah,
know.
right.
But it's rooted in that. So
Mhm.
I've been telling them when they say, I don't know if it's a great answer, I was just saying, honey, I love you. You know, my door will always be open to you. But part of my job as a parent is to
Yeah.
get you ready for adulthood.
Mhm.
And if you think you're ready at 18, I'm not going to stop you.
Right.
But the door, you know, but I'm not throwing you out.
Mhm.
Always reassure her.
Right.
I'm not throwing you out. It's your decision.
Right.
You know? And I'm 90% sure that when Olivia hates 18, she's not going to move out. You know?
No, she won't.
No.
That's expensive.
Yeah, I know.
I just moved out 3
Well,
years
she
ago.
she makes $400 a month, so she's ready to go.
Oh, wow.
Plenty of money.
Absolutely ready to go.
Yeah.
Not sure where that would be.
That's probably, I don't even know if that would cover the tax of living somewhere.
Yeah, she's all like, she says, I made $400 last month. I'm ready, Dad. I'm
Yahtzee.
gonna buy a car and insurance.
Go,
I'm like,
yes.
have fun.
Good luck with that,
Yeah.
Monopoly world.
I'll explain your budget.
Yes.
So,
That's enough to own a boardwalk
yeah.
hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would
That's
just
kinda
again
where
like,
I'm at right now with
I
you.
feel like my parents asked me a lot of questions
Yeah.
when I was a teen, early 20s, and I found that to be so life-giving. Like, because it felt like whether they cared about my answer or not, I don't know. Probably didn't sometimes, but just this sense of you're talking to me as though I'm old enough to be spoken to,
Mhm.
and you want my input. So, and it didn't even change things all the time. It'd be like, okay, like, why aren't you cleaning your room? Okay, you're still cleaning your room. Like, okay, you're still vacuuming. Like, that's still happening. But I want to hear what's going on. I want to invest. I want to talk with you. So I feel
Yeah.
like just asking questions, that would be a big, helpful tip I'd give. Like, to ask questions was such a helpful, and not in a, you're kowtowing to your kids or anything like that. Like, oh, I'm being submissive to you. Like, tell me, great child, what
Right.
should we do next? Nothing like that, but this sense of, I'm talking to you because you're a human and you're living in my house. Like,
Yeah.
like I would talk to my coworker if I was having an issue with my coworker.
Yeah.
Talking to you because you live with me. Like, if you were a roommate, I'd be talking to you too. Like, so I felt like that was helpful. But there was never a sense that like my parents were like, oh, be careful around Diana. Like, we have to be careful to ask these questions so she doesn't get upset. There was never that. It was more, I'm talking to you because you're a human and you live here. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's time.
Okay.
We're done. So get out. No, I just want to close with just just talking to God. If that's all right. That's cool. So God, I just want to thank you for this time. I want to thank you for these parents. What a gift. What a gift it is to see and know parents who see and know you and want to see and know you better. So God, I ask that as they continue to move forward in life, that you would just strengthen them, because I feel like that's such an intense calling, God, to be a parent. but such a joyful calling as well. So I'm so grateful that you've called them to this and that you're equipping them for it. And God, as they go through the rest of this day, I want to pray against any spirit of accusation or any spirit of it's too late or any spirit of you've messed up or this is your fault. God, I want to pray against those things, and that in the name of Jesus they'd be bound, because that's not of you. That God, that you have nothing but grace and nothing but that of life and joy for these parents as they're walking through this crazy story that you're writing. And God, we trust that you are the best author of our stories, and that you're writing their children's stories exactly how they need to be written. And those stories are perfect because you're writing them. They're in an imperfect world, God, but their stories are perfect because they're your children. And how much more do you love your children than even we can? And that these parents are your children also, so that their stories are just as important as their children. So I thank you so much for these beautiful people, God, and I thank you for their willingness to be a part of this and to listen to a 28-year-old non-parent. So I'm thankful for that, God. So I hope that just nothing but light and love and truth can come out of this